All right. Sweetie, this is our first episode. Welcome to episode 1.
It is. It's just like how we sit at home with
I know it is.
microphones in our faces and
I know. Do you want me to take my shirt off?
coffee in our hands. I'm going to leave that up to you.
All right, that's fine.
Maybe we could do a poll at some point.
We just lost at least 50% of our listeners with the off the shirt. Welcome to Off the Fence, actually. You like that?
No, I didn't. That was awkward, but I think that it's good to get the title in and get focused.
So this podcast, we want to use these first couple episodes to really just spell out who we are, where we're coming from. I think a person's value system and like not just what decisions did you make, but why did you make those decisions in those situations is far more helpful than I'm going to do exactly what you did, how you did it. And so what I'm wanting to do is this, is you and I, in essence, talk to each other, which I'm really excited about this.
Uninterrupted, no children.
No children, no 2-year-old. There will be no mommy, baby, Jeep, right? No, but in this whole podcast is designed with a singular goal, is that we talk about and help anyone listening and watching get off the fence about whatever they are on the fence about. So each episode will, in essence, as we get going, will deal with a certain facet of life, parenting stuff, marriage stuff, finance stuff,
Health stuff.
Even
faith stuff.
Faith stuff, forgiveness stuff, church stuff. And then along the way, I imagine we'll even ask people, hey, let us know what you are on the fence about, and we will talk about that. We will even occasionally have guests.
I love inviting friends.
Booyah. Will you call them, hey, friends?
Well, now I'm not.
Oh, well, it's fine. You can do that. All right. So let's, here, for those who are right now, just, okay, who is Katy? Who is David? So let's start there. So I'm gonna interview you, sweetie.
Okay. Fantastic.
All right. So, hot lady, where do you come from?
It's a really nice question
Where did you start?
to ask. I grew up in rural Kansas. My parents were both from Kansas City and decided bravely, the older I get, the more I value their courage to move from this urban environment to a rural, literally a dirt road. We lived on a dirt road. I grew up in a house, but next to a dirt road.
Right, it's gravel roads.
It is gravel road, but they used to be dirt roads.
It's not just gravel road. It's not like, sometimes, we left the interstate. We took about a 30-second gravel road.
Yeah.
Oh my, we're roughing it. No, I'm talking about gravel road.
You have to be committed to get there.
Turn left on another gravel road, then turn again on a gravel road.
I love that you remember how to get to my parents' house.
I do.
After 19 years. That's fantastic. No, so I grew up in rural Kansas. It was a quasi farm. So they moved from Kansas City really hoping to farm. My dad had an uncle that had farmed and thought, let's just try this out. And again, I am just overwhelmed at the courage to just jump into a new thing away from family. So I have an older sister, 2 younger brothers, great parents, incredible parents who both worked far away.
I like your parents.
They're really great.
I always hear these jokes about in-laws and like, oh my goodness. And it's usually negative.
Yeah.
I genuinely, I promise, pinky swear. I love your parents.
Well, they love you very much too. And what's funny is I think they hit the in-law jackpot with you and the other.
I mean, of course they did.
Yeah, like the husbands and wives and stuff
that my
siblings have. So I know that they love all of us, but I think they favor the in-laws intermittently, which is great. But grew up there. My parents know and love Jesus and have my whole life. And so grew up just really rooted and grounded and so much practical. That's what I think of growing up on a farm. There was just so much practical life stuff that I learned. Like we'd swim in the pond, and I started driving. I was probably 4 or 5. I don't even know, but just farm stuff. I just, looking back, I'm just so thankful for that. Went to a rural school, like rode the bus. I never drove it, but like 45 miles to and from school. And
uphill both ways.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And listening to country music. I still to this day love Travis Tritt and Billy Ray Cyrus, but that's because that's what the bus driver, her name is Carol. I still remember her. She came to our wedding, actually. But loved school, went to the same school, lived in the same house. My parents still live in that house when they're not up here with us, hanging out and enjoying life up here. Man. They really like it up here. Yeah.
So siblings living out in the middle of rural Kansas, going to school, doing the thing. Eventually you left home.
I did. Went to college. Actually, the first one from my family to go to that college. Everybody else had went to KU, and I went to K-State, which I know probably in South Dakota isn't that big of a deal. But it's a really big jump for my family to support me in that, to go to the other school. And loved it. I really thought I wanted to ride horses for a living, but I wasn't good at that. And wanted to be a doctor, but I went to college to be a teacher. And I loved history. We grew up traveling a lot to grandparents' houses and would spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. and Civil War battlefield sites. And I wanted to lean into that part of the world and just be able to connect with kids through teaching. So I went to K-State, where I met you, actually at a church. One of the things I wanted to do when I got to college was find a good church, and I did. And you worked at that church.
Yeah, I did.
So I met you.
This basically when your life took off.
I mean, it really was.
I mean, you hit amazing.
It's all just gray and blurry before that.
Okay. So, though you were set on becoming a teacher, even post meeting me, even continue the endeavor of even becoming a school administrator.
Yes, principal.
A principal.
Yeah, I
was in many principal offices. I appreciate a principal.
You were, but I was very organized and kind of liked being in charge, and so I thought, well, this would be nice. So I did that. Yeah.
I'm glad I met you.
Thanks. Well, you're in it now, so that's pretty good that
Committed for life.
Yeah, it's pretty good that you feel that way. But yeah, I think when I think about childhood and growing up, some of the things that I just think about a lot. One, I love the outdoors and I love space and land. Yeah. And I keep telling you that she
wants a farm.
I want a farm with animals, and it doesn't have to be a huge operation or anything, but it's just something that I think wide open spaces and land. And it's just, again, I think as you grow older, the things that really were important to you as you grew up start kind of, you kind of start going back to. And so. Which
makes sense how we got drawn together, because I'm naturally really good with animals and agricultural things.
Yeah, sweet city boy. I was so scared to bring you to my parents' house for the first time, and I think it's because there were so many barns and so much dust and so much gravel and cats.
There were cats.
And that was my fault. I used to feed them.
Your fault.
I used to get my allowance money and buy them the good food, so they'd come from all over. Barn full of cats. But yeah, great parents. Who really loved us. And one of the things that I think about the most as we were raising our kids, one of the greatest blessings that I think my parents gave us was knowing the Lord and loving the Lord, but then going and seeing people and behaving that out was something. My mom was so intentional about helping us and really telling us. It was a tell, not an ask, that if we saw people sitting alone at lunch or somebody being bullied, that was our responsibility, not just an opportunity. It was our responsibility to step in and to lean in and just to see people. And that was so important to my parents, and it was a value of our families. And so I would say that those types of things have just stuck with me. And I'm so blessed to have the family that I had and have.
It's interesting. Just still popped in my head. It's interesting. You should always look at your blessings, right? And one of the blessings we have in our life is that your parents are still together, parents, and so are mine. And
It's huge. Yeah,
that's
it's a huge
that. I
blessing.
wouldn't call it a rarity. I have no scientific basis on that. But what I'm saying is, when you look at the blessings in life, one of the gifts that you can actually give your children and generations that follow you and the family that surrounds you and your friends that surround you, one of the things that they've given us, not necessarily just purely as a gift to us, but your parents are together and my parents are together. That's not to say that those were always easy decisions and they had just cake lives at all. But I was just thinking about that. Wow, like for you and I to come together and to have parents that have stayed together is pretty stinking awesome.
Well, and what we learned from that, what I've learned from that is that it hasn't always been easy, but they've been really open about walking that out. And especially when we got married and we're walking out our just lives and figuring out who we were as a couple and all of that, being able to learn from the stories that they have. And I think any parents, whether they're together or not, you can do that and really be intentional about learning and valuing what they've gone through and how you can learn from that. But I do think it's an enormous blessing that we have parents that are together and just love us so much and are involved in our lives.
Forever.
You didn't say you were going to sing. If that's going to happen, we're going to have to do something different.
Fine. All right. Well.
So that's me, though. And then met you. Whole life changed.
Booyah.
And I think we'll probably go into more of that later, but I think I have loved every moment of, I'm so grateful for everything, even the hard stuff in my life. But I would say like the last 19 years that I've gotten to hang out with you has been just really the best.
Yeah, it has.
I'm trying to be kind and honest here, and you're being mouthy. But I raising kids and really even just discovering more of who I am through that whole process. I've loved it. So that's the flyover of me. Yeah. We could talk more about like my pet cows and
no, that's fine. I like to
all
eat
of my
cows.
high school cars and
Steak. You even raised a pig, didn't you?
we did have pigs.
Or pigs. Pigs, plural.
We did. And I don't like eating pork to this day because of them. Because they're so sweet and then they're just mean. And
I've never met a piece of bacon I would turn away.
Yeah, I really think if anything was going to create a rift in my parents' relationship, it was those pigs. Because they're stinky and smelly and loud.
All right.
We could have a whole podcast on that.
All right.
Are you going to talk about yourself? Tell us about you and where you...
What questions do you have about me?
Gosh, so many. You know, we were talking about lunchboxes the other day. Did you have a lunchbox that we were in a place with all these antiques. Did you have a lunchbox? I know that's random, but
I'm sure that I did. I don't remember it. From what I remember, and my mom might contradict some of this information that I've retained, but when I think of school food or lunchtime, I think about that I typically got, as they called it, the hot lunch.
Oh, yeah. I did too.
So I typically got, I think, my food there. Like what I remember about school food are the rectangle pizzas with the square pieces of pepperoni. Mm-hmm. We even had like lunch ladies who would, I think, like go outside of the tip. It was a private school, and so like they would sometimes like say, "Here's what we're actually cooking today," and like stromboli and oh yeah, and sometimes make cinnamon rolls. It was, I mean, it really
with chili. So you grew up in Kansas and Indiana.
Did we have chili or was it chili?
Did you have chili with the cinnamon rolls? Because in
Not
Kansas,
that I remember.
in Kansas, that's a thing.
Yeah,
they go together.
Yeah, chili. You're going off on a bean. I don't like beans, so chili. You just
right. But when they served chili, did they have cinnamon?
I have no idea.
So Pam and Helen were. I went to a public school. I went to public school my whole life, and Pam and Helen were our elementary lunch ladies, and they made this bubble pizza that I still think about today. It was so good. Okay, just where'd you come from? Where'd you go?
Where did you come from?
Right.
Where did you go?
You're singing.
Where did you come from? Not a joke.
Like
where did I come from?
All of it.
Well, so your story and my story are very different in growing up. Mm-hmm. So,
although we did live nearby each other without even knowing it.
Without knowing it, but I was born in Illinois, moved age of 3 to Kansas. Mm-hmm. lived there till the end of 5th grade, moved to Indiana, lived there till the end of my sophomore year, moved to South Carolina, then moved back to Indiana, then went to college in Indiana, then went to Kansas. So like we did not live in the same house from beginning till like final independent departure, 18 years old or finished with college. So I grew up in a pastor's home. So I grew up with dad was always the pastor of the church that we were at. We never really church shopped. We never like had issue with we just were at church. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, special events. Church was life. Life was church.
And often did your school and church intersect? Like
A couple times, yeah. But always, they were all so intertwined. It was not, church was central, but that sounds a bit religious, and I don't mean it to. Like Jesus was central to our family. Like it was always about a life devoted to our Creator. So I was raised with that, and great parents. I have one sibling, Heather, and she's older than I am, so I was, I guess, the young one. And once you land on perfect, I was the second one. You just stop. I mean,
we're gonna bring your mom in.
You just pretty much you get to like the ideal child that you're wanting to birth. And so I was born, and and that's just kind of how it landed. They're like, hey, you can't do any better than this. And so, anyways, so I actually one caveat in my life is we moved to South Carolina right before my junior year in high school. That did not go well. I was in terms of where we moved to, I was a northerner from Indiana, which is funny because not all that northern anyways. We moved to South Carolina, and there I was called a Yankee, and regularly called a Yankee, which I was like, I don't even like the Yankees. I don't know what you're talking about. And I
should have listened in history class.
I didn't care about history class.
So I was down for them.
So I was getting run off the road. Like literally they would yell at me, get off the road, Yankee, and would run me off the road while I was driving. Anyways, and I emotionally refused to allow myself to move. Anyways, I moved away. I actually went and lived with my grandparents my senior year. And my parents were willing to let me do that, which was a huge sacrifice. And lived with my grandparents my senior year of high school, graduated, and then went to college to be a pastor. Didn't want to be a pastor. I'm a 4th generation pastor in a row now, but had no idea if that was my calling or if I was just basically, I don't know, for lack of better words, doing the family business. It's what I was so accustomed to. I didn't know, am I just comfortable with this? And I, in theory, know how to do it, so I'm just going to do it.
But you felt a call.
Oh yeah, 7th grade.
Right.
Dude is at youth camp going, who feels like God wants you to be like full-time in the ministry? And it was a classic, felt like he was staring at me, heart's racing. And I'm like, and it was in that moment going, I think he's talking to me. I don't want to do what he's saying. But I'm pretty confident God wants me to. So I said yes in 7th grade. And then I spent several years going, but I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to find an alternative to that.
Even kind of finding your own path, though, too, in it. Right. And that collision of, well, this is what everybody's done. So am I sure that this is what I'm supposed to do?
So I just refused. I tell people all the time, you can be called by God to do something, acknowledge that calling. But until you grab a hold of that calling, you're in essence running from it or dodging it. And that's what I did. I delayed it and dodged it for quite some time, even into college. Halfway through college, I went to the psychology department being like, hey, how about me being a counselor instead of a pastor? What I didn't know was the professor I was talking to knew our family, and she knew me, and she's like, nope, David, go back to your classes. You're called to be a pastor. This is what you're. I'm like, fine, let's do it. So then I graduate college, and the easiest route I could come up with. It sounds like I'm in more control than I really am, but I didn't want to become a senior pastor and lead pastor. That seemed like too much responsibility.
Well, stress probably. You grew up knowing the good and the bad and the ugly of
didn't
that.
Want any of that. So I was like, I'll be a youth pastor. I'll hang out with teenagers. That sounds awesome. We'll have pizza all the time. And literally. And so God gave me an opportunity. That's classic how my life works. I don't get job offers. I get a job. offer, nothing else ever.
Then you never have to worry, though. You go, all right, Lord,
So
thank
then
you.
I took a job, and that moved me to Manhattan, Kansas. Where in Manhattan, Kansas, there was this goddess of a woman.
Oh, geez.
Named Catherine. And so I'm a youth pastor at a church, and I'm like, I'm single. I want to meet the woman of my dreams. So the most logical thing I do, I need to start a Bible study.
And you did.
For people my age.
You did.
And so I did.
I still have that letter that you sent.
I bet
you sent it out to the whole church, every college student in the church.
Strategy.
Right. Because I would go to church with like 30 of my sorority sisters.
Yeah.
And we all got the letter. And then a small group of us went. I still have that letter.
How about casting the net on that? Throw that far out. Going, all right, God, bring me my bride.
Which is funny, though, because I remember when they introduced you to the church, because I had been already going, and they introduced you, and I looked at my friends and went, "That he's mine."
I would.
Which is so funny. And then we didn't meet for months later, but you sent that letter. Yeah,
yep.
I still have it.
So a bazillion people came to the Bible study.
There were so many people.
It was insane.
Yeah. You guys were a little overwhelmed that first time.
And so then, broke everybody up into smaller groups in the small group.
So you could stop by each one.
And so I would stop by each one and pastor them. And and then I saw you. And we started talking and literally just hit it off. And you started volunteering with the youth ministry that I was leading. That led to...
Hey, if I like him, I should spend more time hanging out with him.
And that led to, like, walks in the park. That led to...
We did walk in the park a lot.
We did.
That's interesting.
We like to walk.
We did walk and talk. And we would go for coffee a lot at Bob's Diner, which is no longer open.
No. So it sounds like pretty much this is all perfect and dreamy. Well, you and I, so I'm a youth pastor. You are... leader in your sorority, you are going to college, you're on a trajectory.
I am.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're falling in love, but literally set up no boundaries to that falling in love. In other words,
no accountability.
No accountability. Yeah. It's just Katy and I getting to know each other. And all of a sudden, we're like, hey, we're not doing this relationship the way we know we're supposed to. And so that is Christianese right there for we were having sex.
Oh, you're just going to go there.
I just said it, you know what? And scripture talks about, hey, here's great patterns for all of life, different things, but that is ideal, best, God's intentions reserved for marriage.
Yeah.
The science behind it is proven even that when you are intimate like that with another person, you are bonded to that person. You literally bond to that person. And so that's why it's best in a marriage with that kind of a covenant. Well, you and I put the cart before the horse. I'm a regular horse and buggy driver, right?
So you know the lingo.
I know the lingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so my mind right now immediately goes to a shift in our relationship, a shift in our life, a shift in everything. And in relevance to this podcast, you and I had a relationship with God that we said we did, but we were on the fence about a full committal to Him. And when life presented opportunity, we took just that opportunity without God. And that's when you get on the fence.
Yeah.
You get on the fence about something. When your moral compass, your relationship with God just gets set down because you're going to now chase something that you want to chase. And you and I were legitimately in love, but just not going about it the right way, which is typical. What the devil does tempts us, and we go for it. So one night, you take a pregnancy test, maybe multiple ones.
Yeah.
It was multiple ones. I think that's typically how it works.
I just remember going, we should probably talk. And we'd already resolved that this wasn't, we were in the process of getting off the fence, to use that language, where we thought this doesn't feel good we're lying to ourselves. We're lying to one another. We're hurting one another, but we're also not being who we want to be and who we're saying we are. And so we had made that decision. And then about a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, I thought, oh no, I think
Yeah.
I think our lives are going to change
Your
really
body
fast.
was saying something to you. And so here, I want to land this first episode now, walking everybody out to what shifted in our lives
Mm-hmm.
and what I think fuels you and I
Mm-hmm.
to helping people get off the fence. Because some of the things that we would say now, which is now 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
what is the story we're sharing right now?
Yes. Feels like yesterday.
I
like
know,
yes-
but
yeah.
20 years
Yeah.
ago, we found ourselves being, I wanted to say slightly hypocritical. We were being straight up hypocritical.
Totally.
We were on the fence, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we find ourselves in a very public situation,
Mm-hmm.
which is what happens. I think the way the Bible says it is that it gets found out. It gets put into the light.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm a youth pastor dating the love of my life, but now we're expecting a baby and we're not married.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in our circles that we walk in, that is disqualification.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
Mm-hmm.
fireable offense. That changes everything. Even you were helping lead a sorority,
Mm-hmm.
and you were a part of the standards.
I was part of the standards
Sorry, I
board.
mean
Yeah.
it wasn't a jab. I mean, I was a youth pastor, whatever.
But our public life and our private lives looked very
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
And I think one of the kindest things that the Lord has ever done was to walk us through
Exactly.
that, the way that he led us through that.
Still makes me emotional that God let this. God literally pushed us off the fence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when you face this decision of,
Yeah.
okay, what do we really believe about life?
Mm-hmm.
What is really true? And let's start making decisions based on that.
And who am I really? Not who do I want to be?
Right.
I think as humans, we often give ourselves so much leeway because we're looking at ourselves as who we want to be, not who we are always. And we look at other people, though, as who they are, not who they can be. And I think we had to go, who are we really? Walking out of this, we get to choose now, and we need to talk about it and do it. And that really, I think, was the foundation for what I would call a new start that the Lord gave us, a fresh start.
So I don't want to be redundant because I wrote a book and put all this story stuff in it, and we'll talk about it throughout this podcast stuff. But basically, the church that I was youth pastor at refused to treat us how I think some of us think Christians treat us. The church was full of people going, yes, that was not the right way to do it, but we want to love you and
Yes.
walk with you and
Yes.
run to you and be a part of your lives. And the church, it showed us that Christians can actually be an example of Jesus Christ. And so the long story short is I resigned my job as youth pastor. You even resigned your roles at the sorority. And we submitted ourselves to the authorities in our lives. In other words, to other leaders in our lives, to our church. And we said, all right, walk us through that. Help us fix the relationships that
Yes.
we just broke and that we betrayed and that we, and we got right with the Lord, might be the best way to do it. I'll never forget those moments in my just private devotion time were some of the most intimate times with God because I was so broken. I was so revealed that I was like, all right, God, I want to do it your way. However you want it, let's do it that way. I don't want
All
to try
on
to
the
be
table.
someone
Yeah.
else. I don't want to try to climb some ladder. I don't want to just try to get the things in my life that I want. I just want to do what you want as you want it done. And I know that was the same heart that you had. Was like, let's do life right. No longer do I ever want to be a hypocrite ever again.
Yeah.
No longer do I want to be on the fence about anything that God's like saying, come on, do it this way.
Yeah.
And we learned that imperfect people with an imperfect story. That's why we wanted to start episode 1 with this was like, hey, we come from great families that are imperfect as well. We've made our own jacked up decisions and good decisions. We've had classic ups and downs, whatever you want to be. And we have learned that being on the fence is the worst posture in existence in life. Jesus said it so specifically. He would rather us be hot or cold,
Yes.
which means on one side of the fence or the other, not on the fence. And so those are our stories. We'll go through it. We help lead a church. We have tons of friends and that we would love to bring in on this podcast and really go help people. But short and sweet here, here's the deal, if you're on the fence about something, this is what we want. If anyone is off, just let us know about what you're struggling with, the decisions you're struggling making. Maybe you feel hypocritical in some certain area of life. Is going to require so much vulnerability with this podcast. Like, I'm just thinking, like, this is going to be like raw. And so, because anytime you say, I'm on the fence about this, you're admitting something pretty profound where you're saying, you might be saying, I've been lazy about such and such.
Yeah.
I have been two-faced about such and such.
Afraid.
I've been afraid about such and such. Okay. So that's what this is about. So thanks for listening to episode 1 of Off the Fence. I hope you will continue to join us with conversations about how to not live that kind of a life. Thanks for watching and listening. We love you guys very much.